Welcome back to the Gaming News Canada show. This is your host, Steve McAllister. When the Douglas Ford government made the decision back in the day to open the path to a competitive sports betting and online gaming industry in Ontario, more than a few folks wondered what impact the arrival of the world's biggest gaming brands would have on the province's lottery and gaming business. Well, the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation is doing just fine, thank you very much. OLG and the 49 legal operators have combined to deliver millions of dollars in tax revenue to the province since April 2022. OLG executives have publicly acknowledged over that time that the open market was the catalyst for improvements to its digital gaming business. At the same time the Ontario open market launched, OLG hired longtime marketing executive Maxine Chapman as its vice president brand and marketing officer to lead its storytelling and promotional efforts in a brave new world. Chapman, who worked her marketing magic with Canadian and global brands before joining OLG, was honored by Canadian publication Strategy Magazine as its Marketer of the Year for 2024. And so with that, for the first time on the Gaming News Canada show, we say hello to Maxine Chapman. Maxine, this is a long overdue interview on our part, so we are absolutely thrilled to have you on the Gaming News Canada show.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation. Looking forward to it.
Hey, I want to start, Maxine. This is kind of this job at OLG. It's kind of full circle for you with your career. Is that right?
It is. Believe it or not, when I was in high school, I used to work for a company called InfoPlace, which sold lottery tickets. And I got an opportunity to work for OLG in a summer when Pick 3 was being introduced. I won't say when because that'll give away my age, but it was a little while ago. And I got to tour around Ontario with this new machine, gaming machine called a Royal Gateau machine, which was like a Wintario machine, but it was done for Pick 3. So it was a lot of fun.
I want to start, Maxine. I think a lot of people like yourself who have successful careers, they get their starts in unique places. And for you, coming out of Brock University, and again, we won't say how long ago that was. But getting your start at Wonderland, I just imagine, I just wonder, the work that you did at Wonderland, what you learned back then and kind of, how did that set you up to, for the professional journey that you've taken?
Wonderland was such a great job. I loved the job. And I always say that maybe I'll go and work there again one day because I love taking pictures of people having fun and had a roller coaster right outside my office window. When I was in university, I was fortunate enough to create some great events like the charity ball for the first time at Brock. I ran orientation at Brock. And the opportunity I had at Wonderland was to continue in event planning and event execution. So it was very operational in the beginning. And because I had a marketing background through school, it led me into marketing opportunities. So I did many different things in my time at Wonderland, and it taught me about sponsorship, what sponsors were looking for in activations at a park like Wonderland, who had over 1 million plus people at that point in time, and to build authentic connections. So it was a great opportunity to learn a lot, especially on the operational side of things, because as being on both sides, from an ops side and then a brand marketing side, you actually can see just what goes into bringing an event to life. So that's, I think, where I really fell in love with experiential marketing.
The operations side and organizing events like you did at Brock and then at Wonderland. I mean, where do you get that? I mean, some of us are, we're not detail people. We're kind of big thinkers. And in my case, I've had most of my success doing things on deadline or whatever and flying by the seat of my pants. But where does that attention to detail come from for you?
I think it's a lot of flying by the seat of your pants as well, but it is I've always been a planner. I've always wanted to organize things. I was the one with my friends who, let's get on it. Let's plan it. Do you have a reservation? We need a reservation. Like, I'm always kind of thinking a couple of steps ahead. So it was just a natural thing to want to actually bring some. I went to a charity ball at Western, and I thought, why isn't Brock doing this? it was an amazing event, and money went back to an amazing charity of whatever the choice was. So we created a charity ball, and money went back to the YMCA for the first time, so it was great. So I've always wanted to do things where you're actually doing good in return for having a good time.
I'd like to talk for a few minutes about your 11 years at Coca-Cola, and there's obviously you working in different capacities. As someone who was lucky enough to work on the media side at both the Vancouver and London Olympics, I mean, you had experiences at those two games in a different capacity. But I just wonder what are some of the highlights from working for one of the biggest global brands in the world, at Coca-Cola? I mean, how was your career affected by that?
Well, really amazing people, really smart people. So I learned a lot from my colleagues and peers, but most of all, it was the brands. Like if you think of what Coca-Cola stands for, it's optimism, the values of what Coke stands for, and the good that it does to give back to communities, even through some of the work in Live Positively, which is more than a campaign. It was their sustainability platform. Back in it was being introduced just before the 2010 Olympics. And so Coke's mantra is, how do you bring an event like the Olympics to life in a community and leave the community in a better place, because Coke was a part of it. So that was the premise of the work that we did. Of course, we want people to feel good about the brand and the interactions with the brand, but it was never about drink more Coke. It was about how Coke made you feel at that moment. We actually measured how memorable Coca-Cola was in actually making your event more enjoyable. So that was a big key indicator for us in Vancouver, and also in London as well.
Those Olympics, it almost feels like it was a defining moment for this country. And I remember Stephen Brunt writing about it for the Globe and Mail, about how there was this rare wave of nationalism where people were cheering all of a sudden, and Canadians were kind of sticking out their chest. And as Canadian athletes won more and more gold medals, Canadians were bragging, and that's something that was, I think, a little bit strange for our country. We're usually pretty humble people, and we don't like to beat our chests. That this felt different. I just wonder, for brands like Coca-Cola, like what was that like for you? Being not only, I think we all knew the Olympics were going to be a big event for Canadians, but to see it take the path that it did from a nationalistic point of view.
Yeah, it was incredible. In fact, actually, I think it started before the Olympics, because when a country and a city is first awarded the Olympics, there's a lot of, what's this going to mean to me? What's the traffic going to be like? It's going to be too expensive. There's going to be too many people. And then it turned, I think, with the torch relay, because the torch relay went from coast to coast to coast, and just being a part of that celebration. And there were multiple celebrations during lunch and during the evening celebrations. So there were two in communities as it crossed across the country. It was incredible to see people show up and celebrate. And I think the torch relay was a big part of what became this wave of national pride. And then, of course, being in Vancouver, and you couldn't have written a better script for the hockey game. And it was just electric being there from start to finish. Really was.
Maxine, just with the torch relay, I think sometimes, certainly among media, and I count myself among them. I mean, I was working at the Globe and Mail at the time, right around the time before the Vancouver Games, and I think there's always a bit of cynicism around the torch relay, and I think some of that's related to the International Olympic Committee, and sometimes they come under fire. But did that surprise you that the torch relay struck such a chord? And do you remember anything in particular, like a certain town or a certain city or a certain person being involved in the torch relay that really struck a chord with you?
It was different across different communities. It really was, because the sponsors of the torch relay wanted to make each city celebration very special to the location that they were in. I remember Sidney Crosby, this is obviously before the gold medal game, he ran in Halifax, and it was incredible. People showed up to see, but it was, their national hero, but there was also RBC as well as Coca-Cola awarded people to be able to run with the torch because they did something special. And for Coke, it was living active and living green. So those who were demonstrating what they were doing in the community, same with London as well, demonstrating the positive change in communities, got you an opportunity to run with the torch. So it wasn't just regular. I mean, these were regular people running with a torch, but they had done something pretty special to have been given the opportunity.
Do you have any particular special highlights of your own from those Vancouver games, whether it was an event that you were involved in or something that you watched, in terms of a Canadian athlete winning a gold medal, or the gold medal hockey game that you mentioned earlier?
Oh, there was a lot. There was the first when Billadu won a gold medal. Jennifer Heil. It was a really special time in Canada. I remember Coca-Cola, the team, the marketing team at Coke back in Toronto, had put a giant billboard up on the Gardner, and there was a big maple leaf, and we hung medals for each time Canada had won a medal. And my activation, so what I did during the games in Vancouver was I ran all of the experiential. So we did the Coca-Cola Happiness House. And every time there was a medal won, there was this huge eruption. We would have this big dance party, and it was just a lot of fun. And because we won a lot of medals, so we were doing a lot of dancing. It was good.
It's funny. I mean, it also stands. I mean, I was lucky enough going to the Vancouver Olympics. I covered Olympics from back at the home office, but Vancouver was my first Olympics on the ground. And again, when I look back now, I feel incredibly fortunate to have gone to Vancouver, London, and Sochi. I mean, I think 3 pretty amazing games. But I think what stands out for me about Vancouver is the weather being so nice and just the buzz in the city every day, like walking in downtown Vancouver every day among this, the throngs of people, but everybody in such a good mood and like almost a party atmosphere. And it almost felt like walking through a ski village in the Alps, or going through the village of Mont Tremblant every day.
Yeah, it was a special time. And I have to say, I had the opportunity to go to the Olympics in Beijing, and I was able to go to Rio, and just for myself. And my family went to the Olympics in Paris. It's like that. Like, the Olympics are just so special. There's spontaneous eruptions of national anthems somewhere because someone's won a medal. And you could be going to a restaurant and sitting with 12 other countries at one time. It's really good.
Was going to London in 2012, was that something that you thought about as soon as Vancouver games were over, or was it a case where you're absolutely exhausted after Vancouver and you're thinking maybe it's time for me to do something new?
No, once the Olympics get in your system, you can't get them out. That's why I've gone to. I just bought my Milano tickets as well, so I'll be there for that. But it's I was born in the UK. So I have a UK passport, or European Union passport, now back to UK. So I was able to work there, and I knew that I wanted to go there and be able to do again what I had done in Vancouver, to have that feeling again, and to also be a part of a brand that really cared about making sure truly that you left the community in a better place because they were part of the Olympics.
Are there any differences, Maxine, OLG being a provincial / national brand and Coca-Cola being a global brand? I just wonder, are there major differences, or are there lessons to be learned from working for a global brand and being able to bring that experience and that knowledge and some of those strategies to a company like OLG?
I think it's global or local. It's about how you leverage an event to make people feel like they've been a part of it and made memories because they were there. So if you can be a part of making a memory for someone, it's it gives the ability for them to remember you differently than just an ad. So spending that one-on-one time. So I guess maybe the difference back then is one-on-one, now is really truly, it should be one to many. So how are you creating content for the work that you've done to actually create that same example of having a great time, but anyone can enjoy it because they're engaging in your content. So I think global versus local. Yes, Coca-Cola had amazing ads that were able to be tailored. So there would be a creative excellence team in Atlanta that would create whatever the global campaign would be, and then countries would leverage that campaign but make it special to their unique needs or artists or whatever they would be able to bring to the table that made it relevant to their local communities. So whereas OLG, it's in Ontario, but it's the same sentiment. You want people to have fun.
You went on after Coca-Cola, went on to work with Cineplex and Manulife in senior branding positions. I think June will be your third anniversary at OLG, and I just wonder what drew you to make your return to OLG after a rather lengthy hiatus.
Say that again. Why I went to OLG?
I just wonder what attracted you to come back to OLG, a place where you kind of had some experience. Yes, at the beginning, and then deciding to come back in June 2022.
So I was fortunate to work for the companies that I was able to work for after Coca-Cola. So Cineplex, learned a lot. I had an opportunity to create content that went viral. And so that was an amazing experience. And then at Manulife, I learned a lot about ESG. So learned a lot about giving back in a way that created better outcomes for not just the organization, but for communities and for organizations that were involved with Manulife. So I had worked on a project with the National Geographic Society, where Manulife is actually an amazing company. They do quite a lot to develop opportunities for sustainable investing. But they were just starting to talk about all of this great work that they do. And we wanted a tangible way to demonstrate this work that they did in a way that people would relate to. So you think of wealth and asset management and insurance, but we were working with the National Geographic Society to actually work with explorers to map climate change with the World UNESCO sites. Because a lot of these are managed by Indigenous communities or governments who don't know the impact of climate change or having on these heritage sites. And so doing this work with the National Geographic Society had real tangible impact and outcomes that would make a massive difference. And that's actually what drew me back to OLG, because the fact that we're a not-for-profit, the money that is raised through entertainment and lotteries and playing with us is actually given back to communities in Ontario. So that impact was tangible. And so when an opportunity came up here at OLG, and the fact that you get to reward people with millions of dollars of and even just tens of dollars, there's amazing how many people who actually win. It's shocking. There's at least $1, $2, $3 million winners that come through on email quite often in a month.
Have you had a chance to have any kind of a personal connection with any of those winners, Maxine? Because again, I think it's one of the cool things. I've got a friend of mine who won the 649, won $1 million a few years ago, and I'll never forget getting a phone call from him while I'm having a coffee on my deck one morning, and him telling me that news, which is pretty. It's hard not to feel great for someone who's done that.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories. In fact, actually, one of the things that we're going to be doing a better job of is highlighting some of these amazing stories of winners. We have a prize center, and those who win over 50,000 come into the prize center. And we get to hear some of these amazing stories of winners who have this inspirational ideas of what they want to do with the money, or how most people want to help their families and help their friends. And we do a roundup on Fridays of winner stories. So at our prize center, a girl that works for me, her name's Julie, she has this incredible ability to be able to talk to our winners and have them share what this means to them and how it's going to change their life and the lives of their friends and loved ones. And we share these stories internally with to give the inspiration that not only are communities benefiting, but also there are thousands of winners every day across OLG.
Hey, Maxine, I've talked about this on the podcast before. I mean, the OLG has a pretty remarkable history. And for someone of my vintage, I mean, I go back to the early 70s when I was playing minor hockey in rinks across Eastern Ontario. And those Ontario grants back then were the driving force for a lot of arenas to be built in, Brockville, where I was born, and Athens and Cardinal. I mean, the list of arenas within an hour of where I lived in Prescott, Ontario, that were built because off the backs of Ontario grants is pretty incredible. And that's a story that hasn't changed. I mean, obviously, OLG has evolved many more products now. We'll talk about the digital side in a second. But how do you kind of keep that, kind of that historical brand, which is a great story? How does that align with all the other stuff that's happening in terms of innovation now in product and everything that's on your plate?
Well, it's interesting that you had asked that question, because it's our 50th anniversary this year. And we're bringing Wintario back in a unique way. It's going to be launching at the end of June. So not the same as what it was, but more innovative. And it's a celebration that's going to last throughout the year. So more on that to come.
That's great to hear. I look forward to seeing that. We may have to get you back on the podcast, Maxine.
Sure.
One of the challenges, I think you mentioned this in the Strategy Magazine article from February about the generation. And I look back to my generation. My father's in his 80s, still goes to the convenience store and buys his lottery tickets every week. And if you were a sports bettor, you went to the 7-Eleven and filled out your pro line picks a couple of times a week. And I think one thing though OLG has had to somewhat pivot to is marketing to that younger generation. And I'm sure that applies especially to your digital products now, ProLine Plus and online casino games, and having to do that. Was that when you took that job 3 years ago, was that your primary focus? Was how was OLG going to, I don't know, not completely revamp, but I guess make some tweaks or give a facelift to a bit of your strategy from a marketing standpoint when it comes to that younger generation?
Definitely. It's knowing we have great heritage and we needed to build on that heritage, but we didn't want to lose relevancy with younger players, or even just a younger generation who wouldn't necessarily be playing as often. So when we started to look at what OLG meant to players across the board, to our core players and younger players, it was very different. And we were noticing that there was a gap in understanding who we were actually. So we call them U35 or under 35, but we've done a lot more work now to understand who our player of the future is. So it's not just those who are under 35. But we realized that one of the barriers to playing with us is because they didn't want to lose. So it's not about winning. They just didn't want to lose. And it was, well, why play if I'm going to lose? So we knew that we needed to, what we called, redefine the win. So because that segment didn't actually know that money went back to the province. They didn't know that. So when we started to talk about the fact that we're not for profit, that money does go back to the province and to communities like theirs, their sentiment and motivation grew exponentially. So we knew that we needed to do a better job of having a more consistent message about who we were and what we did across the board, but also talk in a different way to what we call this player of the future. So because they do want to win. That's why they play. They want to win, but they felt good knowing that if they didn't win, money was actually going to go back to something that they cared about, back to the communities. So that's when we called this Bring Home the Win. We wanted a brand platform that if you didn't understand the meaning behind it, it would be able to stand on its own. So Bring Home the Win is, I would want to bring home the win, but there was more context to it, because when you win, your community wins. So by playing with us, you're actually the one who's giving back to communities. So we're just the facilitator of the money. So when you play, you're actually making this contribution back to communities. So we called it seeing the me in the we. So instead of OLG taking the credit for it, we wanted the player to know that they were the ones who were making the difference. When you saw this, I don't know if you saw the Sponsored by You commercial that we did with the Olympics, we wanted to put the player at the heart of that campaign. And that's why we called them, the Olympics were actually sponsored by them, because they were the ones who played with us, and their money went back to this program called Quest for Gold, which is an amazing program.
Hey, how do you get that message through to a young generation? Friend, I'm speaking as a father of 3 children in their late 20s, early 30s, and they're not reading newspapers, they're not watching a lot of television, they're not listening to the radio. And again, I think it's fascinating. Someone who's been around the marketing game as long as you have, just that evolution from the traditional media world that you and I grew up into today's digital media world.
It's really understanding your customer and where they're consuming media, what is relevant media or content to them, and actually making sure that we are in the places where they are and not making them come to us. So we've done a lot to work with influencers over the past couple of years. We've done a lot to reposition our brand, but also be more entertaining as well, because we are an entertainment brand. And that's that consistency that I talked about, where we show up and say what we do in the most relevant way possible. So we've done a lot at looking at we went from a very high traditional media percentage to now more than 65+% in terms of digital now, and being very, very smart about where we show up, and actually being more conscious about creator content, and not just telling our influencer partners on what to say, but helping them say it in their authentic way for us. So we've got some more work to do there for sure, but we're definitely excited about the work that we're embarking on. We're looking for a new social first agency who's going to help us with that, so that we are leveraging their authentic voices in a way that people are following them for a reason.
Yeah, and I think that's been reflected, the commercial arm of the owners of this company. We've seen Kevin Kennedy and his team doing some work for OLG at Maple Leaf Square during the Stanley Cup playoffs so far, and it's fun and engaging, and it's not that traditional where, hey, place a parlay bet tonight or the Leafs are -110 to beat the Senators. It's more about people gathering in one place and enjoying the game and talking about being together.
Yeah, and those are the memories. So you talked about Maple Leaf Square, and then what we're doing with Proline and Proline Plus is we introduced a new campaign platform last year called Make Things Interesting. So we wanted to create moments where sports fans get together, but interesting things happen when you're together. So down at Maple Leaf Square, there's Nav Bhatia is the fan of the Raptors, and there's different fans, but there's never been one Maple Leaf fan that stands out, because there's many. So at Maple Leaf Square, we're awarding the best Maple Leaf fans who are help through MLSE, who are selected on stage, get to be in the most interesting seats in the house. And these are seats that are literally parked right in front of the big jumbo screen. And they're reclining seats, and you get we have a relationship with Real Sports, so it's fully catered by Real Sports. So they just keep bringing food to you, and you get to watch the game on these amazing reclining seats and get some Pro Line and Leaf swag. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and we've had a lot of great memories created because of it.
I'm not going to ask you to give away any secrets, Maxine, but again, we think about, we have a World Cup coming to Canada over a year from now, and I guess the other question too is this something that can go beyond sporting events? I mean, any kind of a special event where there's a gathering that takes place, where there's a horse race or a festival, and seems to fit with your mandate again of being in those communities.
So I talked about these winning experiences and redefining the win. We're taking that even further by creating a new sponsorship strategy that basically has us at the heart of winning. So if OLG is there, someone's going to win something. So that's how we're really positioning us showing up, because winning will always trump giving. People feel good about giving back, but they want to win too. So how do we find this amazing balance where, because you're playing with us, your money does go back to the province, but we want you to win too. We want you to feel like a winner, even if you haven't won, because your money's gone back. So when you look at our activations with MLSE and our other sporting partners and sponsorship partners, including Live Nation, you'll know that we will have a winning experience of some sort coming your way.
The Money Machine initiative that took place at Eaton Center, I think earlier this back in the winter. I mean, is there a short story around that? Again, I just think that's what a fun way to not only have something that's right on site, but then to be able to take the content that happens from that activation and promote it to a wider audience beyond the Eaton Center.
Yeah, Money Machine is an amazing game. So you could win a chance to go into the Money Machine, and we want you to win. So we make it easy for you to grab as many bills as you possibly can. And it's just fun. It's a lot of fun. It's air blowing up and you catching money and great content, and people come out of there. I mean, of course, your adrenaline's pumping as you're going in, because you want to win, but coming out of it, you're ecstatic with what you've been able to catch. So yeah, it's a great innovative game, one that we're capturing content from and sharing it because we want people to win. We truly, truly do.
I want to pivot a little bit, and I mentioned this before we hit the record button on this interview, and not too long after you started, OLG came out with a commercial around Bring Home the Win right around the holidays in 2022, and it's we'll make sure we include a link to it in the Substack post that goes out with the podcast. But the commercial is basically three friends that end up hitting it big at the lottery, and they end up a bus driver gets to share in the profits. It's a great story, and I was telling you that commercial really resonated on social media with people, and you don't see that very, very often. I can't think of a lot of commercials in my lifetime that create that kind of buzz. And how did that commercial come about, and did you get the same kind of feedback I was seeing?
We did. We wanted to find a way, because community, especially for Player of the Future, doesn't necessarily mean your community that you live in. It could be your community of friends. And so we wanted friends to come together because of playing. And because if you remember in the story, they all had busy lives. They weren't really sure if they're going to be able to get together for the holidays. And a winning ticket brought them together. And then, of course, it's a journey to get together.
Right.
And there was a lot of thought that went into how do we also make sure that people would see that there's a community side of this, not just your friends, but that your money does go back when you play, go back into communities when you play with us. So the bus driver became a pivotal part of the story because we wanted him to, he's just somebody who was off duty, who found somebody whose car was broken down and gave him a lift. And we wanted him to feel like he was a part of the win as well. So yeah, even, you have a special story when you're trying to tell it and you get choked up telling it. It was
yeah. Full disclosure, like I was a bit misty-eyed the first time I saw it. Do you remember the first time you saw the ad and what your expression and what the feedback was? I think it was BBDO that worked with OLG on that commercial. Do you remember the feeling the first time you saw it?
I do. We worked the team who worked on the ad itself, and BBDO. I'll just do a quick shout out to Nick Doer and Guillermo, who are the creative inspiration behind this. We worked really hard to get that look from the bus driver, and when we saw it all come together, we all thought, oh, this was pretty special. It was good.
Just a couple more questions, Maxine. I just wonder, there's so many brands within OLG. How do you work with, I guess, trying to profile each individual brand, but at the same time having those core messages or core values that you talked about earlier?
So we talk a lot about priming and activating. So if you think about the equity that we're trying to build in OLG Masterbrand, well, Masterbrand doesn't necessarily sell anything, but what we want to do is prime. So people understood that when you play with us, more happens with your dollars. And so we wanted to prime for the activation of the brands who would then have sales overnight. So demand over time for the brand master brand and sales overnight for the products. So that could be on high jackpot activations, could be on sporting events. It could be when there's the King's Plate is in town. So we wanted people to know that your play is different with us because it is money goes back to communities. But it really, there's campaigns behind each product. Each product themselves has a brand territory that is unique to them, and like Dream to the Max with Lotto Max and Find Your Possible for $6.49, make things interesting for Proline. And we have a multiple array of instant tickets that come in and out of the market to always add excitement to play. So campaigns are built around moments in time, whether that be around sporting events, high jackpots, or for limited time opportunities with our some of the products that come in, for instance. So I feel fortunate to work with some. For Ontario, we have $1 billion brands for just Ontario. It's great. It's a privilege to be able to work on brands that are inspirational because people are going to win.
I'm just curious, like, how do you, as a leader, like, how do you balance your own staff and then OLG? You work with several agencies. Like, how do you juggle all those balls in the air?
It's not as hard as maybe it might sound. Like we work with multiple agencies because we want them to be our partners in understanding our customer, understanding the environment that we're in, but also to be strategic partners to us. So it would be difficult to work with one agency across all of our brands because it would be hard to have those experts that are deep in the trenches with us. So we work with some amazing agencies that help us bring our brands to life. And I have an amazing team as well. So I work in a shared services area. So I have a Marcom team that works very closely with the lines of business. The lines of business have marketing leaders within the line of business themselves, like lottery is a line of business, digital. So anything sold at retail is considered lottery. Anything sold online is considered digital. And so we work very closely with my colleagues who are amazing marketers themselves to bring their products to life. And then my team works with the agencies to bring the brief to fruition.
Does the digital world just feels like a fast moving train? I mean, does it surprise you or amaze you at everything that's happened in digital media? And again, I look back, I was at the NHL Players Association in 1995 when we created one of the first sports websites, and it was so simple in that. And when I joined the Globe in 2000, journalists weren't allowed to use Facebook because for privacy reasons, which was crazy that a journalist couldn't sit at his computer and use Facebook. And we've seen since then how valuable Facebook and social media is for journalists to do their job. Are you surprised with just how fast things have moved in the different platforms we have today?
I think it's not necessarily surprising. I think it's just making sure, again, that you're customer obsessed. So you're showing up and being relevant in the places you know your customers are. And if you're not doing that, then you're missing their behavior. You're missing creating connections with them in a relevant way because and then you're just talking to them instead of talking with them. So I think it's, as any marketing leader should be, is on top of where customers are and knowing your customers deeply to make sure that you're being salient as a brand, so you're top of mind and they want to play with you versus competitors.
Last question, Maxine. What gets you excited when you wake up in the morning these days about what you're doing and what's ahead?
I mean, I said this before, and it's really not just lip service. We do really want people to win, both from a community perspective and also people who play with us. So I get excited when I see an email come across of people who have won, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Scarborough's just won $1 million, and it's just because it's real, and it's something that, like I said, we need to do a better job of sharing just how many winners we do have with OLG, and if you don't win, the money goes back. And so that's an important piece, but it's not OLG. We're just like this in between. It's players who have made a difference in Ontario. And I talked about that impact where I saw, whether that be at Manulife or the work that we did at Coke in the Olympics, that to me makes a difference, that the marketing you've done isn't just selling a product, it's actually making a difference in the lives of people who are interacting with you. So that's what's exciting. And I wish I could share more with you about what we're doing with our 50th anniversary, but it's going to be very exciting.
We'll certainly be reaching out to Tony Battani, and I'm sure Tony will be reaching out to us as he always does and providing that information when we get closer. That is Maxine Chapman, the Vice President, Brand and Marketing Officer for the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation. Maxine, it's great to have you on the podcast. Really appreciate you sharing your insights with us, and let's make sure we don't wait so long to get you back on the podcast soon.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it.
That's it for this episode of the Gaming News Canada Show. You can always find us on Substack at gamingnewscanada.ca and on the various podcast platforms. Thanks so much again to Maxine Chapman for joining us today, and we will see everybody again very, very soon.